The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. It came screaming across the void of space at the speed of light, carrying with it the weight of 17 conquered star systems and the arrogance of an empire that had never known defeat. Admiral Park Do-yun was eating breakfast when his communicator buzzed. He was a man of 58 years, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen more battles than he cared to remember. He set down his chopsticks and answered the call. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kim Yuna, her voice tight with something that might have been worry. "You need to come to the bridge. We're receiving a transmission from an unknown alien fleet. They've just entered the outer edge of our territory." Do-yun sighed. He had been looking forward to finishing his rice porridge. On my way. The bridge of the flagship Persistent Dawn was alive with activity when he arrived. Officers moved between stations, screens flickered with data, and in the center of it all, a massive holographic display showed the approaching fleet. Do-yun counted the ships. Then he counted again, because surely there couldn't be that many. 10,000 warships hung in the darkness of space. They were ugly things, all sharp angles and exposed weapons, painted in colors of rust and dried blood. At their center sat a vessel so large it made the others look like insects around a beast. "That's their flagship," said Yuna, pointing at the massive ship. "The Claw of Thrax, named after their emperor." "How creative," Do-hyun said dryly. "What do they want?" "They're sending a message now, sir. Audio and visual." The holographic display shifted. The alien fleet disappeared, replaced by a face that would have given children nightmares. Emperor Thrax of the Valoran Empire was an insectoid creature, standing nearly 3 meters tall. His exoskeleton was the color of old bones, and his compound eyes glittered with cruel intelligence. Mandibles clicked as he spoke, his words translated into human language by the ship's computers. "Creatures of the planet called Earth," Thrax began, his voice dripping with contempt. "I am Emperor Thrax, ruler of the Valoran Empire, conqueror of 17 star systems, and master of 12 subjugated species. You exist now in my shadow." The image shifted to show worlds burning. Cities crumbled under orbital bombardment. Aliens of various species were shown in chains, their spirits broken, their civilizations reduced to ash. It was a parade of horrors, designed to crush hope before a single shot was fired. "This is what awaits those who resist," Thrax continued. "The Gorvani resisted. Their homeworld is now a mining colony. The Zeleth resisted. Their species now serves as manual labor in our factories. The Primi resisted." He paused for effect. "There are no more Primi." Do-hyun watched with his arms crossed. Around him, his crew stared at the screen with various expressions. Some looked disturbed, others looked thoughtful. A few looked almost bored. "You have 72 of your Earth hours to surrender unconditionally," Thrax declared. "Your leaders will present themselves to me in chains. Your military forces will stand down. Your worlds will become property of the Valoran Empire. Refuse, and you will be annihilated. Every man, woman, and child, every city, every memory of your pathetic civilization will be erased from existence." The Emperor leaned closer to the camera, his mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile. "Do not test me, humans. You are alone in the universe. No one will save you. No one will remember you. You will submit, or you will die." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. Do-yun stood very still for a long moment. His officers watched him, waiting for his response. Would he call for emergency protocols? Would he order an immediate evacuation of civilian populations? Would he contact Earth's leaders to discuss surrender? He did none of these things. Instead, Admiral Park Do-yun began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, low and quiet. Then it grew into a full laugh, his shoulders shaking with genuine amusement. The sound was so unexpected that his crew simply stared at him. Then Lieutenant Yuna snorted. She tried to hold it back, covering her mouth with her hand, but it escaped anyway. Beside her, the helmsman let out a loud guffaw. The weapons officer started giggling. Within 30 seconds, the entire bridge was laughing. "Sir," Yuna managed between breaths, Did he really threaten to make us slaves?" "He did," Do-Yun confirmed, wiping a tear from his eye. "He also called us alone in the universe. Should we tell him about the 14 other species we've made friends with?" "I don't think he did his research," said Commander Baek Ji-yeon, the tactical officer. She was already pulling up data on the Valoran ships. Her professional analysis mixed with a smile she couldn't quite hide. "Sir, their weapons technology appears to be roughly equivalent to what we were using 200 years ago." 200 years? Do-Hyun raised an eyebrow. "Maybe 250. Their shields are practically decorative." Another wave of laughter swept through the bridge. Do-Hyun let it continue for a moment before raising his hand for quiet. All right. Let's not get too comfortable. 10,000 ships is still 10,000 ships, even if they're flying antiques." He straightened his uniform and turned to Yuna. "Lieutenant, send word to Earth Command. Tell them we have visitors who would like to discuss surrender." "Their surrender, sir?" Do-Yun smiled. "They just don't know it yet." He paused, then added, "Also, see if the mess hall can send up some coffee, and maybe some snacks. I have a feeling we're going to enjoy watching this." As the crew returned to their stations, still chuckling, Do-Hyun stared at the holographic display showing the Valoran fleet. 10,000 ships, crewed by aliens who thought they knew what war meant. They had no idea. Humanity had spent thousands of years fighting itself. They had invented weapons that could crack planets and technologies that could bend space itself. They had faced extinction a dozen times and laughed in its face each time, and now some insect with a god complex wanted to make them afraid. Do-Yun took his seat in the command chair and smiled. This was going to be fun. News of the Valoran ultimatum spread across human space faster than light itself. Within hours, every colony, every station, and every ship knew that an alien empire had demanded humanity's surrender. The Valorans expected panic. They expected chaos. They expected humans to flood their communication channels with desperate pleas for mercy. What they got instead confused them greatly. The first sign that something was wrong came when Valoran intelligence officers intercepted human transmissions. Instead of emergency broadcasts and evacuation orders, they found something else entirely: images. Crude drawings of Emperor Thrax with silly hats on his head. Videos of humans pretending to be scared, then breaking into laughter. Songs with lyrics mocking the Valoran Empire's threats. One transmission showed a human child holding a drawing. The child had drawn the Valoran flagship as a large bug being stepped on by a stick figure labeled Earth. "What is this?" demanded Subcommander Vrix, the intelligence officer aboard the Claw of Thrax. He had conquered 6 species in his career. None of them had ever responded like this. "I believe they call them memes, sir," said his assistant nervously. "Memes? A form of humor, sir. They appear to be making fun of us." Vrix's mandibles clicked in confusion. He had seen species beg. He had seen them fight desperately. He had even seen them choose mass suicide rather than submission. But he had never seen a species respond to the threat of extinction with jokes. On Earth, the Human Defense Council gathered in the Great Chamber beneath Geneva. Representatives from every colony world attended through holographic projection, their images flickering in the massive room. At the head of the table sat General Lee Soo-jin, a woman whose reputation needed no introduction. She was 52 years old, with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. 15 years ago, she had ended the Mars Rebellion in 6 days through a combination of brilliant tactics and psychological warfare. The rebels had surrendered not because they were defeated, but because they realized they had no hope of winning. "Let me make sure I understand correctly," she said, looking at the tactical display. "They have 10,000 ships. Their weapons are 2 centuries behind ours. Their shields can barely stop our smallest guns. And they expect us to surrender." "That is correct, General," said Admiral Do-Yun, his image projected from the persistent dawn. "Do they know anything about us?" "Apparently not. Their scouts must have seen our outer colonies and assumed we were a minor species." Sujin leaned back in her chair. "So they came to conquer us based on incomplete intelligence, with inferior technology, and without bothering to learn anything about human history or capabilities?" "That appears to be the case." A smile crossed Sujin's face. It was not a kind smile. "Then I almost feel sorry for them." The council quickly agreed on a response. There would be no surrender, no negotiation, and no fear. Instead, they would give the Valorans exactly what they deserved, a lesson they would never forget. Word went out to every human fleet. Ships began moving from their stations, converging on the coordinates where the Valoran Armada waited. But the call was not one of desperate defense. It was almost festive. Captain Cho Hyun-woo received the orders aboard his carrier, the Swift Justice. He was 34 years old, with a reputation for being either brilliant or insane, depending on who you asked. His squadron of fighter pilots had the highest kill count in the fleet. They also had the highest number of disciplinary warnings for unprofessional behavior during combat. His call sign was Laughing Wolf, earned because he grinned during battle. The more dangerous the situation, the wider he smiled. "All right, listen up," he told his pilots in the briefing room. "We've got some bugs who think they're scary. Command wants us to show them otherwise." "Rules of engagement, sir?" asked Lieutenant Kang Mirai, his second in command. "Disable, don't destroy. Command wants prisoners." Hyun-woo's grin was already appearing. "But feel free to have fun with it." The pilots cheered. Someone started playing music over the ship's speakers. It was an old song, something from Earth centuries ago, with a fast beat and lyrics about not being afraid. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Ships gathered. Crews painted slogans on their hulls. One destroyer arrived at the rendezvous point with the words "Free Hugs" written in carefully translated Valoran script. Another had painted a cartoon bug with X's for eyes. The human armada assembled, 3,000 ships against 10,000. On paper, it looked like a mismatch. The Valorans outnumbered them more than 3-1, but numbers were not everything. Valoran scouts watched the human fleet gather. They reported back to Emperor Thrax with growing unease. "Majesty," said Commander Vrix, "the humans are not fleeing. They are not evacuating their civilians. They appear to be celebrating." Thrax sat on his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the room. "Celebrating?" "Yes, Majesty. We have intercepted communications. They are making wagers on how quickly they will defeat us. They are playing music. Some of their ships have painted messages on their hulls." "What kind of messages?" Vrix hesitated. "One says, 'Welcome to the party.' Another says, 'You should have stayed home.' A third says something about hugging, but I do not understand the context." Thrax's mandibles clicked slowly. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered this. Species were supposed to fear the Valoran Empire. They were supposed to tremble at the sight of his fleet. They were not supposed to paint jokes on their warships. "They are bluffing," he decided. "They must be. No species can be this foolish." "Of course, Majesty," Vrix agreed, though doubt had begun to creep into his voice. The 72 hours counted down. The human armada finished assembling. Admiral Do-Yun stood on the bridge of the persistent dawn, looking at the tactical display that showed both fleets. "All ships report ready, sir," said Lieutenant Yuna. "Good." Do-Yun sipped his tea calmly. "Tell the crews to get some rest. We've got a few hours before the deadline, and I want everyone fresh. Sir, shouldn't we be preparing battle strategies? Running drills? Do-yun smiled. Lieutenant, we've been preparing for this since before you were born. Every drill, every training exercise, every war game we've ever run. This is what we do. He took another sip. Besides, I don't want to spoil the surprise. Outside the viewports, the stars shone cold and eternal. Somewhere out there, 10,000 Valoran warships waited, crewed by aliens who believed they were about to conquer humanity. They had no idea what was coming, and that, Do-yun thought, was exactly how he wanted it. The 72 hours ended at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. Emperor Thrax had chosen the timing carefully. He believed that striking in the darkness would add to the terror. He did not know that humans had stopped being afraid of the dark thousands of years ago. The Valoran Grand Fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 10,000 ships arranged in the ancient pattern called the Claw of Dominion, a formation that had crushed countless civilizations. At the front came the heavy cruisers, their weapons charged and ready. Behind them came the destroyers and battleships. At the center, protected by rings of smaller vessels, sat the Claw of Thrax itself, Emperor Thrax watching from his throne room. Across the void, the human armada waited. 3,000 ships spread in what appeared to be a random pattern, no formation, no order. To the Valoran commanders, it looked like chaos. It looked like fear. It was neither. Admiral Park Do-hyun sat in his command chair, a cup of tea in his hand. Around him, the bridge crew went about their duties with calm efficiency. There was no tension, no nervous energy. They might have been doing routine maintenance for all the urgency they showed. Enemy fleet is advancing. Sir, reported Commander Baek Ji-yeon from the tactical station. They'll be in weapons range in 4 minutes. Thank you, Commander. Do-hyun took a sip of his tea. It was a good blend from a small farm on Mars. He made a mental note to order more after this was finished. Sir? Asked Lieutenant Yuna. Shouldn't we be raising shields? Charging weapons? Our shields have been up since yesterday, Lieutenant. As for weapons, he smiled. They've been ready for 200 years. The Valoran fleet drew closer. On the Claw of Thrax, Emperor Thrax leaned forward in anticipation. This was the moment he loved most, the instant before destruction, when his enemies realized they had no hope. Soon, the humans would break. They would scatter. They would beg. All ships, he commanded. Open fire! 10,000 Valoran warships unleashed their weapons at once. The void lit up with plasma fire, a storm of destruction that would have been beautiful if it wasn't meant to kill. Thousands of shots screamed toward the human fleet, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a small city. The shots hit the human shields. They did nothing. The plasma splashed against barriers of shimmering blue light and simply stopped. The energy was absorbed, dispersed, rendered harmless. Not a single human ship was damaged. Not a single crew member was hurt. On the bridge of the persistent dawn, Ensign Han Min-jae looked up from the weapons console. He was young, barely 25, and this was his first real battle. His voice carried genuine confusion. Is that it? Do-hyun set down his teacup. Apparently so. He stood from his chair and straightened his uniform. Commander Ji-yeon, please inform the fleet that they may return fire, but gently. I want prisoners for questioning. Gently, sir? We're not trying to start a war, Commander. We're trying to end one. The order went out. 3,000 human ships acknowledged, and then they fired. It was not a barrage. It was not a storm. It was a single, perfectly coordinated strike. Every ship fired at the same instant, targeting specific points on the Valoran formation. The shots were precise, surgical, almost delicate. 2,000 Valoran ships simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, weapons blazing, crews confident in their superiority. The next moment, they were expanding clouds of debris and cooling gas. No warning, no chance to react, just gone. The Valoran fleet froze. 8,000 ships remained, but they had stopped moving. Their formation, the famous Claw of Dominion, had been shattered in a single heartbeat. On the Claw of Thrax, Emperor Thrax stared at the tactical display. His compound eyes could not comprehend what they were seeing. 2,000 ships, 20% of his grand fleet, destroyed in less than a second. "That's impossible," he whispered. But it was not impossible. It was just human. Captain Cho Hyunwoo's fighter squadron launched from the Swift Justice. 50 small craft, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a Valoran destroyer. They moved through the chaos with impossible grace, dancing between enemy ships like leaves in a storm. "All right, wolves," Hyunwoo said over the squadron channel, his grin audible in his voice. "Remember the rules. Disable, don't destroy. Let's show these bugs what flying really looks like." His fighters scattered into the Valoran fleet. They were so fast that the enemy gunners couldn't track them. They were so nimble that missiles passed harmlessly by. One by one, they disabled Valoran ships, precise shots taking out engines and weapons while leaving life support intact. And the whole time, Hyunwoo broadcast music over open channels. It was an upbeat song, something with a fast rhythm and cheerful lyrics. The Valoran crews could hear it as their ships went dark around them. Lieutenant Kang Mirai pulled alongside a Valoran cruiser. The enemy ship was 5 times the size of her fighter, bristling with weapons that couldn't hit her. She disabled its engines with 2 shots, then flew past the bridge viewport slowly enough for the crew to see her. She waved at them. The human fleet pressed forward, but it was hardly a battle. It was more like a demonstration. Ships that should have been evenly matched with Valoran cruisers simply ignored their weapons fire and disabled them with casual ease. Destroyers that should have fallen to massed plasma simply absorbed the shots and kept advancing. One human cruiser, the Laughing Star, performed a series of maneuvers that served no tactical purpose whatsoever. It flew loops around a Valoran battleship, then used precision laser fire to write "Oops" on a nearby asteroid in perfect Valoran script. The message was clear. This was not a fight. This was humanity showing the Valoran Empire exactly how outmatched they were. Within 1 hour, the battle was effectively over. Half the Valoran fleet was destroyed or disabled. The other half was surrounded, their weapons useless, their engines targeted and ready to be destroyed at a word. Admiral Do-yun had not moved from his chair. His tea had gone cold, but he didn't mind. He looked at the tactical display showing the shattered remnants of the Valoran Armada and felt something that might have been pity. They had come to conquer. They had come to enslave. They had expected humanity to cower and beg. Instead, they had found something they never expected. They had found a species that laughed at their threats. They had found a species that treated their grand invasion as entertainment. They had found humanity. And now, surrounded and helpless, they were beginning to understand what that meant. Emperor Thrax sat alone in his throne room. The great chamber, designed to intimidate visitors with its size and darkness, now felt like a tomb. The tactical displays that lined the walls showed nothing but disaster. Half his fleet was gone. The other half was surrounded. His flagship, the mighty Claw of Thrax, was trapped at the center of a closing net of human ships. There was nowhere to run. There was nothing to do. For the first time in his long life, Thrax felt afraid. He had conquered 12 species. He had destroyed worlds. He had built an empire that stretched across 17 star systems. Generals trembled at his name. Entire civilizations had surrendered at the mere sight of his fleet. And now, in less than 2 hours, everything had fallen apart. "Majesty," said Commander Vrix, approaching the throne with obvious terror. The human fleet has surrounded us completely. They are not firing, but they are waiting. Waiting for what? I do not know, Majesty. Perhaps they want us to surrender. Surrender. The word tasted like poison. Thrax had never surrendered. The Valoran Empire did not surrender. They were the conquerors. They were the masters. Others surrendered to them. But the tactical display told a different story. The humans had not lost a single ship. Not one. Their shields had absorbed everything the Valoran fleet had thrown at them. Their weapons had torn through Valoran defenses like paper. And worst of all, they had done it while playing music and painting jokes on asteroids. They were not just winning, they were playing. What do we know about them? Thrax demanded. These humans. What are they? Vrix pulled up what little information they had gathered. They appear to have originated from a single planet, Majesty, a small world called Earth. They spread to nearby systems approximately 300 years ago and have continued expanding since. 300 years? That's nothing. We have been an empire for 2,000 years. Yes, Majesty, but... Vrix hesitated. But what? Their technological advancement appears to be unusual. Based on our records, 300 years ago they were using chemical rockets and primitive nuclear weapons. Now they have faster-than-light travel, shields that can absorb plasma fire, and weapons that can destroy our ships with a single shot. Thrax's mandibles clicked nervously. 300 years. His species had taken 2,000 years to reach their current level of technology. The humans had surpassed them in less than a fifth of that time. What kind of species could advance so quickly? A communication alert sounded. Someone was hailing the flagship. Vrix looked at the source and went pale. It's them, Majesty, the human flagship. They want to talk. Thrax considered refusing. He considered ordering his remaining ships to fight to the death. He considered a dozen responses, each more desperate than the last. But in the end, curiosity won. He had to know. He had to understand how everything had gone so wrong. Accept the transmission. The main display flickered and a human face appeared. Admiral Park Do-hyun looked remarkably relaxed for a man in the middle of a battle. He was holding a cup of something steaming, and his expression was almost friendly. Emperor Thrax, Do-hyun said pleasantly. I believe you wanted to discuss terms? I have some time now. The casualness of it made Thrax's blood boil. You mock me. No, Your Majesty. I'm offering you a chance to end this without any more death. The Admiral took a sip from his cup. Your fleet is surrounded. Half your ships are destroyed or disabled. We could finish this in minutes if we wanted to, but we would rather talk. Talk? Thrax spat the word. We are the Valoran Empire. We do not talk. We conquer. Yes, I noticed that from your transmission. Very impressive. 12 subjugated species, 17 star systems, thousands of years of dominance. Do-hyun's expression didn't change. Tell me, in all that time, did you ever meet a species you couldn't beat? Thrax was silent. I'll take that as a no. The Admiral set down his cup. Your Majesty, let me explain something about humanity. We spent most of our history fighting each other, not other species. Ourselves. We had wars that killed millions. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came close to extinction more times than I can count. Then you are foolish. Perhaps. But we learned something from all that violence. Do-hyun leaned forward slightly. We learned how to win. We learned tactics and strategies that no peaceful species would ever discover. We learned to build weapons of unimaginable power because we needed them to survive each other. He paused, letting the words sink in. You brought 10,000 ships to intimidate us, Your Majesty. We brought 3,000 because we didn't want it to be too unfair. This isn't a war for us. This is barely a training exercise. Thrax wanted to argue. He wanted to scream defiance. But the tactical display behind him showed the truth. 5,000 Valoran ships destroyed or disabled. 0 human casualties. The numbers didn't lie. "What do you want?" he finally asked, the words bitter on his tongue. "Surrender," Do-Yun said simply. "Unconditional. Your fleet stands down. Your empire releases the species you've conquered. You face justice for your crimes." "And if I refuse?" The Admiral's expression shifted slightly. It was subtle, but Thrax saw something in those human eyes that he recognized. It was the same look he had seen in his own reflection after ordering the destruction of worlds. "If you refuse," Do-Hyun said quietly, "then I will do what you threatened to do to us. Every ship, every soldier, every memory of your fleet erased from existence." He picked up his cup again. "But I would rather not. I've seen enough death for one lifetime. I suspect you have too, even if you won't admit it." Thrax sat in silence. His throne, once a symbol of absolute power, now felt like a prison. His fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, was broken and helpless. Everything he had built, everything he had conquered, meant nothing against these strange, laughing creatures. "You could have destroyed us immediately," he said slowly. "Why didn't you?" Do-Yun smiled. It was a sad smile, tired and old. "Because we're not like you, Your Majesty. We don't enjoy this. We never did." He stood from his chair. "You have 1 hour to make your decision. I hope you choose wisely." The transmission ended. Thrax sat alone in the darkness of his throne room, surrounded by the wreckage of his ambitions. For the first time in his life, the conqueror had been conquered, and he didn't even understand how. The war ended 6 hours after it began. Emperor Thrax's surrender came not with fire and fury, but with a simple transmission accepting all of Admiral Do-Yun's terms. The remaining Valoran ships powered down their weapons. The Great Claw of Dominion formation dissolved into scattered groups of defeated vessels. What happened next surprised everyone, especially the Valorans. Instead of chains and prison cells, Thrax found himself aboard the persistent Dawn as a guest. He was given comfortable quarters. He was offered food and drink. No one threatened him. No one gloated over his defeat. It confused him more than the battle itself. Dr. Shin Yunji was assigned to help him understand. She was the fleet's cultural specialist, a woman of 40 with kind eyes and a patient voice. Her job was to study alien species and help them communicate with humanity. Now, she had the strangest assignment of her career, explaining humans to a former conqueror. They sat in a small meeting room, a table between them. Thrax was still in his imperial armor, though his weapons had been taken. He looked smaller somehow, as if defeat had physically shrunk him. "I don't understand," he said for perhaps the 20th time. "We came to destroy you. We threatened to enslave your people. Why are you treating me like this?" Yunji poured 2 cups of tea. She pushed one toward Thrax, who looked at it suspiciously. "It's not poisoned," she said with a small smile. "It's just tea. Humans drink it when they want to relax and talk." Thrax picked up the cup carefully. His claws were not designed for human objects, but he managed. He took a small sip. The taste was strange, but not unpleasant. "To answer your question," Yunji continued, "we're treating you like this because we don't believe in revenge. Everyone believes in revenge. Not us. Not anymore." She took a sip of her own tea. "We used to. For thousands of years, we hurt each other over old wounds and ancient grudges. It almost destroyed us, so we learned to do things differently." Thrax set down his cup. His compound eyes studied her with new curiosity. "But we attacked you. We would have killed billions of your people. Yes, and if you had succeeded, we would have stopped you with whatever force necessary. But you didn't succeed. You're not a threat anymore." Yunji leaned forward slightly. What would punishing you accomplish now? Would it bring back the Valoran soldiers who died? Would it undo the fear you caused? Would it make us safer? It would make an example. Others would fear you. We don't want others to fear us, Your Majesty. Fear is a terrible foundation for relationships. It creates resentment and breeds rebellion. Eventually, someone always rises up against the thing they fear. She smiled again. We learned that lesson too. The door opened, and Admiral Do-Yun entered. He had changed out of his formal uniform into simpler clothes. He looked like someone's grandfather, not the commander of humanity's military. Mind if I join you? He asked. Thrax nodded slowly. Do-Yun pulled up a chair and sat down with a slight groan. Getting old, he muttered. Dr. Shin, how is our guest? Confused, Yunji said. Understandable. Do-Hyun looked at Thrax with something that might have been sympathy. Your Majesty, I want to ask you something. In 2,000 years of conquest, did the Valoran Empire ever try just talking to other species? Thrax blinked. Talking? Yes. Meeting them, learning about them, trading with them, making friends. Why would we do that? We are stronger. They are weaker. The strong take from the weak. That is the natural order. Do-Hyun and Yunji exchanged a look. That's one way to see things, Do-Hyun said. But let me offer another perspective. You conquered 12 species. You took their resources, their labor, their freedom. And what did you gain? Power, wealth, territory. Did you gain their knowledge, their art, their ideas? Do-Hyun shook his head. Slaves don't innovate, Your Majesty. They don't create. They just survive. You built an empire of subjects who hate you. We built a coalition of partners who help us. He leaned back in his chair. 300 years ago, we met our first alien species, the Karathi. They were about as advanced as you are now. We could have conquered them easily, but instead, we traded with them. We shared technology. We learned from each other. He smiled. Now, Karathi scientists work alongside human scientists. Karathi art hangs in human museums. Karathi and humans marry each other, have families together. That is weakness, Thrax said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Our combined civilization is stronger than either species alone. Their ideas plus our ideas. Their perspective plus our perspective. Do-Yun's eyes met Thrax's. Your Majesty, you have ruled 17 star systems for 2,000 years. We have shared 14 for 300. And yet, in those 300 years, we advanced further than you did in 2,000. That is the power of cooperation. Thrax was silent for a long time. His whole life, everything he had been taught, told him that the strong took and the weak gave. It was the foundation of Valoran society. It was the truth of the universe. But the truth of the universe had just defeated his entire fleet without losing a single ship. What happens now? He finally asked. Yunji answered. Your empire will change. The species you conquered will be freed. They will be offered membership in our coalition as equals, not as subjects. Your people will need to learn new ways of living, new ways of relating to others. And me? That depends on you. Do-Hyun stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars shone eternal and cold. You can resist. You can cling to the old ways. You can spend the rest of your life in comfortable captivity, bitter and angry. He turned back to face Thrax. Or you can help. You can be part of the change. You know your empire better than anyone. You could help us build something new, something better. He paused. It won't be easy. Many of your people will hate the change. Many of the species you conquered will hate you. It will take generations to heal the wounds. Why would you trust me? Do-Hyun smiled. We wouldn't. Not at first. Trust is earned, not given. But everyone deserves a chance to earn it. He walked to the table and picked up Thrax's teacup, now empty. He refilled it and set it back down. Think about it, Your Majesty. You have time. Months passed. The Valoran Empire transformed. It was not easy. There was resistance. There was anger. There were those who could not accept the new reality. But slowly, change came. The 12 subjugated species were freed. Many chose to join the human coalition. Others chose independence. All were given the choice. Admiral Do Yun retired to a quiet colony world and opened a small tea shop. He spent his days serving customers and watching the sunset. Sometimes old friends visited. Sometimes new friends came. Captain Cho Hyun-woo became an instructor at the Coalition Academy. He taught young pilots from a dozen species how to fly. His classes were unconventional, filled with music and laughter, but his students consistently ranked among the best. General Lee Soo-jin wrote a book about the war. She called it The Shortest War. It became a bestseller across 3 galaxies, and Emperor Thrax, former terror of the stars, found a new purpose. He became an ambassador, traveling to worlds his people had once conquered, asking for forgiveness he knew he might never receive. Some rejected him, some attacked him, but some, slowly, began to listen. On the anniversary of the war, a ceremony was held. Representatives from every species in the coalition gathered to remember what had happened and to celebrate what they had built together. Thrax stood on a stage before thousands of beings, many of whom had once been his slaves. His voice was quiet but clear. 1 year ago, he said, I came to human space to conquer. I came with threats and weapons and 10,000 ships. I came believing that fear was power and strength was everything. He paused, looking out at the crowd. I was wrong. The humans taught me something that 2,000 years of conquest never could. True strength is not the ability to destroy. True power is not making others afraid. He bowed his head. True strength is choosing not to destroy when you could. True power is offering friendship instead of fear. In the front row, Admiral Do Yun sat with a cup of tea in his hand. He caught Thrax's eye and raised the cup slightly in a silent toast. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then slowly, applause began. It spread through the assembly, growing louder, until the hall rang with it. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. That would take generations, but it was a beginning. And beginnings, as humans knew better than anyone, were everything.